Hey guys, it's Rainey Romero. Thank you so much for joining us for another Carolina Justice Report. Today we're talking all about what's going on with the Camp Lejeune lawsuits. Welcome back. I am joined with attorneys Justin Lovely and Amy Lawrence. How you guys doing?
Doing great. How you doing, Rainey?
I'm good. I'm very curious to hear all about this because I think everybody can agree at this point that we're being inundated with all of these Camp Lejeune info, everything, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So tell folks a little bit about what's going on and why they're seeing so much of this Camp Lejeune stuff.
Well, so Camp Lejeune and these toxic water claims are going to be the biggest mass tort, mass action ever. Okay. And the reason we say that is we think there's studies are showing there were 1 million veterans and workers who lived in that area during this time frame. And when we talk about time frame, we're looking back with these cases from 1953 to 1987.
Oh, wow. So a while ago.
So millions of veterans and people who just work there. So obviously, if you were exposed to the water, we're talking about your grandparents. We're talking about some veterans that are currently living with these debilitating diseases, and then obviously some cases where they've already passed away, and so we're dealing with their children and their grandchildren who think they may have claims for their grandparents.
So when we're talking about that time period, what you're saying is the water was contaminated during that time period, and so there's all these issues coming up from that being ingested and being all over them, right?
Right. So this whole case turns on contaminated toxic water. Okay. And what we mean by that is chemicals, volatile organic compounds were being dumped into the water system.
Yikes.
And so you had, veterans who were training, Marines that were training, naval officers who were training, they're taking showers in it, they're drinking it. Their children are out while they're serving. Their children are at home, swimming in swimming pools, taking showers. And then, depending on what your classification, what your rank was, you may have been actually working with these chemicals, on the base. And all of these seeped back into the groundwater. Okay.
Ugh,
and so from that time frame, it's just that they were exposed. And you had millions of Marines coming through there being trained. This was the middle of the Cold War. This is the middle of the Vietnam War. All special operations Marines were being stationed there. And so, and then you had their families and you had just military contractors.
Yeah, it's terrible. So what was the water contaminated with?
Well, again, you have all these harsh chemicals, right? These VOCs, right? So crazy. If you watch more of my shorts that I've shot,
right,
we go through each chemical that was exposed. But it kind of started with a dry cleaning business that is the chemicals are seeping off and it's getting into the groundwater. They kind of know about that. When I say they, the government knows about that. But it all seeps into the groundwater, and then the way the damn pump system is working with the way water was distributed with the water treatment plants, the whole base eventually over time gets exposed. So depending on where you lived, the New River Valley, Hadnot Point, Tarawa Terrace, anywhere on the Camp Lejeune property eventually became contaminated.
What a terrible story. I have so many questions that come to mind when I hear this, because you're saying from the 50s to the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a long time. And you're saying the government knew that this was happening?
Well, they slowly figure it out, right? And they keep, and more information is coming about as we continue this litigation. Mm-hmm. So, and who knows what we're really going to find out about it. But,
right.
Yeah, they knew about it. The EPA does tests on the water. The real big eye-opening test was in 1982. Okay, and this is when so they've been living on base for 53 to 82, and that's when they're testing this water. And the EPA sets safe water limits for these different volatile organic compounds. And when they do the testing in 82, it comes back as 300 times what the average limit should be for safe drinking water.
Oh my gosh!
And so the whole time, it's crazy.
Oh, this is terrible. Okay, so now we know what's going on there and why we're seeing all this water contamination stuff. What happened, like injury-wise, or what are the effects of that bad water?
We're seeing everything from birth defects, stillbirths, to cancers.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and everything in between that you can imagine.
Yeah, cancers, Parkinson's disease, terrible diseases, tooth loss. Like Amy said, women were having miscarriages, right? And they're like, well, what is happening? They had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So, and it all comes back, it was the water. It's just terrible to even think about.
Yeah. So, we've obviously talked about mass torts and kind of how that works with the Carolina Justice Report here. So, this is part of a mass tort that's going on right now because it's affected so many people in the country that have been stationed there. And it's not just people on base, right? It's people who were living and working around that area too.
Yeah, so we're accepting any case where, as long as we can prove you were on base for at least 30 days, and it does not have to be consecutive. So if you had if you did 2 weeks, then you went home for 2 weeks, and came back and did another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
As long as you were there for 30 days, and we're going to be able to prove that, then that's a case we would accept.
Okay.
When life gets ugly, justice is love.